I've always been an alchemist, transmuting what remains after destruction, creating something new, hopefully infusing the innocence, love, and light that was lost, building with broken shards that make my hands bleed. Loss doesn't just come from death, but from what was supposed to be and never will. That feeling of grief swells, and then the almost unthinkable question hits. What next? Welcome to the Obliterated Place for all the brokenhearted, a space dedicated to creating something from the unrecognizable remnants of loss in its many forms. A place to witness one another's grief and choose to honor grief through our actions, big and small. I'm Kaye Steinsapir. Thanks for joining us today.
Hello, welcome back to the Obliterated Place podcast. I'm your host, Kaye Steinsapir. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you're coming back, thank you so much. And if you're brand new, we're so happy you're joining us. I am here with my guest today, Nancy Watson from Dallas. Hi, Nancy.
Hi.
So nice to be with you. I'm so glad that we're doing this.
Me too. My goal today is to be as interesting as a guest as Eli was. That's a high bar, though.
So. That's so funny. He just kept asking and asking to be a guest. I was like, all right, if you really want to. And then when he was on here, he was quite shy compared to how he normally is. Like once he got into the studio, because there are lights and all these things, he sort of clammed up a little bit as a 10-year-old would, But he was
I
excited.
thought he was charming.
He's a
and
sweet
I will try
kid.
to be equally charming.
I love it. I love it. Well, I am really glad that we connected. Did we first, I know we found each other online. How did we connect? Was it on Twitter?
I believe that I followed you on Twitter, and okay. I don't remember if I followed you before January of 2021, but I know that I was glued to your Twitter feed for a lot of weeks around that time. As soon as, I think we all, as people who have lost children, have an affinity for other people who have lost children. And so yes. I was still definitely finding my way in that world at the time. And I read with great sorrow your story about Molly.
Yes. Oh, well, thank you. It was interesting because I wasn't someone who was that active online. I definitely wasn't very active on Twitter, but I would just share updates because I was alone with Molly in the ICU for those. I mean, John was there for part of the time. But because it was COVID, it was like at first I was alone and then we were alternating alone. And it was so difficult to update people. It was so difficult for me to repeat those terrible things and everything. I just started posting updates. And then kind of before I knew it, and I didn't know it until afterwards, actually, all these other people are also reading these updates. And it was really helpful for me, actually. It made me less alone. It was like an example of social media kind of at its best. There are so many bad things about it, but it was interesting in that way. It was just all of these people just kind of lifted me up from all over. And many of them stayed now 5.5 years later. It's really special.
Yeah. It's one way that social media lived up to its positive potential, for sure.
It's true. Yeah. It's amazing. So you are 7 years since you lost your child, correct?
Yeah. Just coming up on 7.5.
So you were 2 years ahead of me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know what you mean about just, because I'm the same way now, whenever I see anyone else, whether it's newly diagnosed with breast cancer, because I'm in that world, that club as well, or it's someone who's lost a child, you understand them deeply and you want to try to connect and be helpful. And a lot of people have done that for me. And I try to pay that forward as much as I possibly can.
Yeah, there are many clubs that none of us would really prefer to join. So
Correct. I think this is probably the ultimate, right? The parents who have lost a child club has got to be.
You hate ultimate. To compare, but yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's like we kind of are everyone's worst fear, like was my worst fear too. And now I'm here, and it definitely is what led me to create the Obliterated Place, because that's how my life was. And now it's still completely different, and trying to create something in this space that honors Molly, that honors life, that gives back. And I know that you do that as well through yoga and the things that you give to others. It's really beautiful.
Yeah, I've been a yogi for a long time, a yoga practitioner, and the people at my studio were so kind to me when I first, when my kid first died. I kept going, and I would just go in. I'm sure I looked awful because several of the kind teachers pulled me aside and said, "Are you okay?"
You were like, no, really. No, not at all.
So I'm not. So I found that when I did a little bit of yoga, I felt a tiny bit less bad at the end of that hour of doing yoga. So I kept doing it. And one person that I've met recently said, whatever it is that makes you feel a little bit less bad, keep doing that.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
I think people find their way in lots of different ways, but yoga has been my path out of the deep depths of grief anyway.
Yeah. And don't you find that grief and all sorts of emotions really like take root in the body, right? It's like it's there. And grief, I know for me and a lot of friends and guests that have been on here talk about how physical it is. Like just I feel like especially when it's your child, it's your child that you brought into the world so physically, and then you feel their absence so viscerally and so physically.
Yeah. At the cellular level, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And you've got to do something with that. That can't just sit. I remember the first anniversary of Molly's passing, and then the first Mother's Day. I felt like I got hit by a truck, like physically just incapacitated. So, yeah. I mean, I think that moving your body and breathing and also it's sort of a way to, and I struggle with this, like kind of in some ways get still, and a spiritual practice if you want it to be. So it's sort of all of those things. So it really makes a lot of sense that it made you feel a little bit less bad, and it was the thing that you decided to kind of find meaning and help others use yoga as a way to make themselves feel less bad.
Yeah. And because it is the movement, and I think that's where people who don't do a lot of yoga, maybe their mind immediately goes to, finding some really difficult, challenging looking pose, which is not my kind of yoga, but the gentle movement, but also what it does for my mind, because my mind is not always a real happy place. And yes. I have a lot of if only, and I shoulda, and why didn't I? And, those kinds of things that I think are very common for anybody who's lost anybody, but especially for a parent. You yes. feel like you failed your one job of protecting your kid, right? So yes. The mental part of being able to find, like you said, that place of stillness mm-hmm. and just finding a little bit of equanimity about the situation, which is not always easy, but that has been almost a greater gift to me than the physical aspect of doing the yoga.
I understand that for sure. The need to just like escape what's going on in the mind, the suffering, that we're experiencing in all the different ways that just going through your daily life, there are so many triggers and things that bring us right back to the fact that our child's not here. And nothing will ever be right, truly, because they're not here. And I mean, I certainly do my best to try and still have a good life and find meaning. And, I feel like definitely owe it to my boys, like they can't have a mother who's given up on life, but there are certainly times that I feel that low, and not as often as I used to, but still. Yeah.
Well, and the fact is, it's never going to not be sad. I mean, if you cannot be sad about your dead child, what can you be sad about? Yeah. And it hits you at weird times. And sometimes it's like a birthday or the death anniversary, or that are real obvious things, but also it could happen on any random Tuesday for anything, seemingly no reason. And 7.5 years out, I can still have those days where I just feel like I got kicked in the stomach. Yeah. So, and I expect that will continue.
It makes it hard to kind of just go through life, and, people have work and they have obligations and all of these things that we need to do. And unless you are someone who's living through this experience, it's hard for people to understand maybe that, 7.5 later, I still out of nowhere have a day where I feel like I got kicked in the stomach and I need to just stay in bed all day.
Right.
I guess, we just call it a mental health day, or however long it takes us.
Right.
Yeah.
The rest of our lives, I think.
Exactly. Well, let's talk about Adam. Let's talk about your child. And,
okay.
I mean, part of what I love to do here is, because I know as someone who's lost a child, I want to talk about Molly and tell stories about her and have it not be uncomfortable or terrible or whatever. It's just like, I like to just have a platform and a place where we can talk about our kids and all the great things about them and all the things we love and miss, and then all the sad things and all the regret and all the things that we think about, and the struggles we had. So, let's talk about Adam.
Well, I'm going to start talking about Emily because my kid came into the world as Emily and left the world as Adam. And I had my Emily for 24.5 years, and I had Adam for about 1.5 years.
I see.
And so most of my good memories of my kid was when my kid was Emily.
Yes.
So I often refer to my kid as EmilyAdam because I don't really want to deny the existence of Adam, but to be perfectly honest, Adam was a more challenging person to have in our lives.
That's interesting.
And so it's a challenge. My kid, in whatever incarnation, they had a lot of mental illness issues. And I was explaining to someone recently, and I realized, wow, this was really a lifetime struggle for my kiddo, because the first psychiatrist visit, I think, was when Emily was 7 years old. And then there was a day hospitalization when she was 8 years old. And then there was a residential stay when she was 15 years old. And it just, sort of that went on for a really long time. And I know that a lot of people have said that when their kid decided to transition, they felt like, oh, okay, this makes a lot of sense to me. And now my kid seems so much more settled and happy. And I didn't really see that with my child. I think that it would probably be normal for any person who had had a really hard time making friends to want friends really desperately. And I think in the trans community, they are often sometimes more open and more willing to be friends with people who are different. And my kid was really different. So I think that my EmilyAdam found some friends there. And for that, I am very, very grateful, because my kid as Emily really never had any friends. And my kid as Adam did have a few friends at the time of his death. Oh, so I'm grateful for that. And I have questions, because that transition, the other part of that transition is it came after some illicit drug use. And there was a really, really long period of psychosis where EmilyAdam sort of was going back and forth at that time, but there was auditory hallucinations and visual hallucinations and more hospital stays and that kind of thing. And it was on the other side of that Adam decided that Adam was Adam. And so I have a lot of questions about that whole thing.
As anyone would.
It doesn't matter. Because I miss my kid every single day. And I really wish that he or she were here to make us laugh and be goofy and silly and quirky and unusual. And, that's because that's the kind of kid that both of them were. So.
Wow. Yeah. Did you raise your family in Texas?
I did. So I'm a native Dallasite, which is really unusual, but even more unusual, my mother was also a native Dallasite. She lived in the same zip code for 91 years. Wow. So so nice. not a person given to a lot of change. So my first husband had a lot of mental illness issues, and unfortunately, Emily inherited quite a bit of the poor gene pool, and a little from my side of the family too, but not to the extent that that was on his side. It's a sad thing to watch, and I believe you have some experience with that as well.
I do. So, it is unbearable sometimes to watch. I don't have the experience with my children, but I have it with a lot of my family members. I have it with my mother. I have it with my sister to some degree, and a lot of extended family. My cousin would experience that level of like psychosis and delusions and voices and all these, that level of mental illness. And it's heartbreaking. And it's heartbreaking when you can't change the reality, right? It's just like, I mean, with my mother, it's, and it's a combination of both. It's a combination of there were issues there, and then there were drugs, and then now everything is exacerbated. And everything is, now we're in a place where it's like we're no longer in the same reality. Like we're no longer talking about, we can't engage because we're literally, she's in a completely different place mentally, and won't accept help, and it's very draining, it's very hard, and it's been going on for a very long time, and so I can relate to just like what it's like to live life with somebody who's grappling with mental illness and then adding addiction into the mix. It's brutal. And yet so many people can relate to it. Right. It's so common.
Yeah. It's common once somebody starts talking about it, because nobody wants to be the first one to bring it up. But as soon as, you have Oh, I have an alcoholic in my family. Me too. Oh, I have a gay brother. Oh, me too. I have met someone with mental illness. Me too. And it's a very, very common thing. And I think one of the things that has been helpful for me that I did not anticipate in my yoga for grief classes, it's kind of like a weird amalgam that I've come up with, was a little bit of like support group and a little bit of movement and then a little bit of meditation at the end. And so we start off and we talk and I tell my story. And because I've been able to tell my story, the more I tell my story, the easier it gets to tell my story. And I grew up in a family that did not talk about anything unpleasant at all. And so my father died when I was 6, and we basically just never talked about him again. So my MO is, oh, I had this horrible thing happen, but I need to go to work and act like nothing bad happened and just, like suck it up and rub some dirt on it. You'll be fine, kind of thing. And surprisingly, that didn't work so well for me.
Yeah.
7.5 years ago when I was, falling apart.
Yeah.
But I really had to learn how to just have a conversation. And I think when I am able to have that conversation, it does seem to allow other people the freedom to have difficult conversations too. So that's been one of the more surprising things to me about the yoga thing. So
it's wonderful. It's exactly why I'm here. It's exactly what I'm doing. It resonates so much with me because I've found that to be true too. And I grew up with all of this trauma and really stored it, internally, and sort of channeled a lot of energy into like, okay, I'm going to achieve academically and get out of this situation and go to college and go to law school and all of this. But I never dealt with the underlying issues. And so when I was 39 and just given birth to Eli, I was diagnosed with cancer, and I had no reason to be diagnosed with cancer in that I didn't have a family history or gene that would have contributed to that. And I knew immediately, like, yeah, this is all of that, like coming home to roost. Like this is all of the stored emotions, the sadness, the loneliness, the anger, the rage, all of those things that I just kind of stuffed inside, and I never talked about it. And I became, because I realized, I knew immediately the connection, and my husband did too. I remember when John came home from work when I got the diagnosis, and it was so terrifying, obviously. I mean, anybody who's just found out they have cancer is terrified, but I had a newborn infant and 2 little kids, and we knew it was bad. Like we knew I had a lot of lymph node involvement and everything. And the very first thing he said was like, oh, your fucking family, like your family, it's just like that all of this angst for all of these years and all of the horrible, episodes we've had, created illness. And I realized, okay, one thing I'm not going to do anymore is be quiet about any of it anymore. And so I became very transparent about my experience going through cancer. I had really benefited from other people who were a little before me, a little further down the road, who were very open and transparent about what they were going through. And then I did the same thing. And part of my transparency had to be like, and a big reason I think I got into this situation is because of all of this, because I was, a child of a teenage mother and lived this very unstable, unsafe, in many ways unloved, like life. And that then became kind of like you, it's like, oh, then I started telling my story. And so then when Molly died and when Molly was in the hospital, it was natural for me to keep doing it because that's what I had learned a few years prior to that when I had the cancer.
I was just telling somebody a moment ago that when you're in this horrible place of that very early grief, a couple of people have said this to me, all they wanted to see is somebody that was a little bit farther down the line that
Yes.
managed to survive.
Yes.
Because you can't imagine how you're going to do it. But when you see that other people have done it, you think, okay, they've done it. Maybe
Yes.
I can do it too.
Exactly.
And
exactly. And everyone who comes on this
I
podcast,
try to do that for other people.
Yeah, everyone who comes here says some version of that, and that's what's motivating them to be here and to talk about their own experience and to share. So, I think is really, really meaningful. And I know because I hear from people that just the act of seeing me and seeing the guests here and hearing stories is giving them that hope that, okay, there they are. There's Kaye and Nancy, 7.5 and 5.5 years out, and they're still here and they're doing it, and they still are living a good and meaningful life and finding ways to embrace joy. And even though we're living with this, albatross, like we're living with this deep, deep sorrow, we are living with it and moving with it. And
it's a both and. It's that equanimity of being able to hold those two realities at the same time, that life has horrible, awful things that happen. And, I'm probably not done with horrible, awful things that might befall me in the next little bit of my life, right? And at the same time, there are so many things that continue to bring me joy. And I would hate to be missing out on those things.
Yeah, of course. Of course. And you have another child, right?
I do. I have they were about 16 months apart. Will, he goes by now and lives in New York. And he is a successful computer guy doing things that, how when my mother would ask me, what is it exactly you do? I feel like that I'm Nat for him now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
computer things. I'm the same way. I don't know anything about. I have to get like my teenager to come and help me all the time with anything related to tech. So I get it. Yeah. Were they close growing up, Emily and Will?
That's an interesting question. I divorced their dad when they were at, like a really bad age. I don't know that there's a good age for parents to get divorced, but they were like 11 and 12, and there was a lot of bouncing back and forth from one home to another. And then Emily was hard to have a relationship with because there were aspects of her personality that were maybe on the autism spectrum, maybe on just, that sort of different reality kind of thing. So never really got a clear diagnosis, and I don't know that really matters, but, anyway, it was tumultuous in their adolescences, and, it would have been hard to be Emily's brother, and it would have been hard to be Emily. So.
Yeah, I understand that. And it's so hard when your child's struggling with friendship. I've been going through that, with one of mine, and you just want more than anything to try to intervene and try to, make it better. And, when my child's been really severely bullied, and it's just like nothing feels more painful, and for me, I want to, like, of course, stop this and do all the things and get so angry, especially having, I feel like I'm like a mama bear that's already lost a cub, and now I'm so protective of the two I have left, that if anybody looks at them sideways, my dander's up,
Yeah.
I think that's when it's such a hard thing.
I listened to a good bit of Eli's interview with you, and I heard him say that he wants to walk to school by himself. And I thought, ooh, that'd be hard for me. And I wondered if that's going to be hard for you, if that's like really in his future, and how brave you have to be to maybe think about letting that happen.
Yeah, it's hard not to be overly, like, I'm not a helicopter parent. I never was, but I'm cautious and I'm paying attention. And
of course you are.
Yeah, I mean, so on that specific issue, it will be okay because the school is very close to our house.
Yeah.
And we live in a neighborhood that, well, it burned down. So
right.
We used to live in a neighborhood.
Will again someday.
Will again someday. Live in a neighborhood where, everybody knows everybody. Everyone's looking out. And it's literally, you walk down my street, you cross one little tiny street where there's hardly any cars or anything, and you walk right straight to the school. I mean, it's like less than 5 minutes. And he plans to walk with a friend who's actually the brother of Molly's best friend who was in the accident with her. We live across the street from one another. So they plan to walk together. So that part will be okay. I'll be fine with that. Although we will hopefully be back in November. And at that time, there's still going to be just a ton of construction and equipment and work and all of that being done. So I may well be like trailing behind at a not too noticeable distance to make sure that they make it there without any incident. But it is hard. Like the boys are at camp right now, and it's been hard. I've been depressed, kind of melancholy, sort of. And in some ways, it's like I thought, oh well, it's great because I'm going to have a break. Like it's been tough dealing with some of these struggles. It's like my kids have just been through a lot. Their mother had cancer, and during the pandemic, their sister died suddenly.
Yeah, a lot of stuff.
They just never saw her again. And, their grandmother is severely mentally ill, and their town burnt down. And so it's just very difficult. And Nate said, he's almost 16. He's in high school, and he has just the normal challenges of adolescence. And
sure.
I thought that I would be relieved and enjoy a break, but it's hard for me. It's like almost, I said to John, it feels like for some reason, it's hard to articulate, but it feels as though Molly's absence, that void that's always there, has felt like bigger, and the silence like more deafening because they're not there. It's
right.
just like, oh my gosh, it's just, I maybe the obvious answer is like, well, there's not as much distraction going on. I have to just sit with this, and I have a hard time with that. I'm somebody that's like just a busy bee and constantly doing all these different projects and things, and the kids, keep me very busy and active all the time. And so I have had to just sit with it, which is something we need to do. But for me, it's hard.
Yeah. And Eli looks so much like Molly, right?
Yeah.
Is he aware of how much he looks like Molly?
He is. Yeah. He looks at photos and he says, oh, that looks like me. And sometimes, if you're just, because we have those digital frames in the house where the photos just go by.
Yeah.
And if you just are glancing at the corner of your eye, you think it's the other one all the time. And like the camp posts the pictures online of the kids. You have to go on this app and you look through all these faces for your kid. And that's another, kind of another one of many paper cuts. It's like, oh, I don't get to look for Molly anymore because she's not there anymore. But then I do see Eli, and for a second I think it's her. Like, so it's just this, I don't know. I mean, it's very bittersweet,
Sure.
how there's similarities, and they sound alike. Their mannerisms are alike. And so I think it's like for Nate, he went from being in for most of his life, like a 2-sibling dynamic. And Molly was the older, obviously. And then there were the 3 of them for 4 years. But then now he's in another 2-sibling situation for now a longer period of time. And that sibling is very similar to the other one. It's like that's bizarre. None of it is easy, that's for sure. But I am so grateful, obviously, that I have them and that we had Eli, because we were not sure, if we were going to have a 3rd child or try for a 3rd child. And we had already kind of given away all the baby gear because, Nate was 6. So we were out of the really challenging baby toddler years. And we were both really busy practicing lawyers. We didn't have a lot of family support and whatever. So it in a lot of ways didn't make sense. But I don't know. I just could not shake this feeling like we were meant to have another child, and it just kept getting stronger and stronger. And there was Eli, and he is really, he brings a lot of levity, into our lives, and he's just easy, he just likes everybody. He's happy. He's just, he's a pleasure. Like, he's just very easy. No problem. Like, if he gets upset, he very quickly can be redirected. And when we go to the Palisades, it's like I've got 2 kids who could not be more different in their points of view, because Eli from the beginning, and I mean, this place looked like a war zone, and in many ways still does, and he always sees what's still there. It's like, oh, look, this house is still there, all of that. And Nate is just like horrified by the whole thing, and like inconsolable. They all come out different.
Yeah, they do. They do.
Yeah.
Funny how they can be from the same gene pool and be so different.
I know. Yep. They're getting closer, as they get older, which is nice to see. But they're 6 years apart. But as they're getting older, they're doing more things together. And, Molly was just she had such a different relationship with the 2 of them. With Nate, it's like they were so close in age, and she just bossed him around and controlled him and was definitely the dominant, kind of bossy older sister. And with Eli, it was like Eli was like her baby doll, and she knew how much he looked like her, and she just loved taking care of him, and she was like a little mother with him, And it's just so heartbreaking that he only got 4 years with her, Yeah. It's so sad. And
that you only got 12.
I know it. Yeah. Do you still feel EmilyAdam with you in some way? Like, do you still feel connected?
That's such an interesting question. I really wish that I would get signs. And I have had 3 or 4 dreams where it has been very, very vivid and was more like a visitation than a dream. And I would give anything if I could like call one of those up, like probably any day, but every day. Yeah. So one of the most interesting things that happened dream-wise was a couple of years ago. It was the day before a class where I was going to be talking about continuing our relationship with our lost loved ones in my Yoga for Grief class. And there were a couple of people in the class that had sort of unusually challenging situations that had brought them to the class. Mm-hmm. And I had the most vivid dream of trying to get in touch with Adam and like trying to find all these telephones, and I couldn't find the phone that had the right phone number in it. And in the way of dreams, it seems like that part just went on and on and on forever. And then I finally got in touch with Adam, and Adam was like, yeah, no, I'm right here, but you need to let your people know that we're okay here. So I know you're going to be talking to them tomorrow, and just let them know that we're all okay here. And I woke up and I was like, what was that?
That's incredible.
It was just as clear as it could be. And I have delivered that message to my classes every time on that particular, lesson for the day. And it that gave me some comfort, and another dream, it was like, I've been looking all over for you. And it was Emily in this dream. And she said, well, I've been right here. I'm doing just fine.
Yeah.
And that, she never really did just fine when she was on this side of things. So I'm glad that he or she is doing fine wherever they are now.
Of course. Well, it's interesting you mentioned dreams, because I just did, while the boys have been at camp, I did a healing sort of ritual, like ancestral clearing. I forget what it's even called. It's ancestral clearing, I think. I don't know what it is, but it's something where I know my family's a mess. It's like something isn't quite right with a lot of people in my family. We clearly have generational trauma that seems to be impacting a lot of people. So my friend, Nikki Mark, who lost her son, Tommy, she was a guest here on the podcast. Tommy also was 12 and just didn't wake up one morning. And you reminded me of Nikki because she mentioned a few of the same things you mentioned. One of them was that she just desperately needed to move her body, and yoga was what helped her. And she had a yoga, practitioner come to her house and help her. And through that, and she has the same mentality, like whatever helps just a little bit. And for her, none of the kind of traditional healing modalities like therapy and, whatever helped her. So she has really spent a lot of her time exploring different like alternative healing modalities. And I'm a person that I'll just try anything and everything, because why not? I don't know. I mean, I was like that with cancer. I wanted everything like Western medicine could give me, and I wanted all the other things as well. And so I have been trying some of these different things out. And this one was one that I knew about. I knew that Nikki and her friends were learning about this. They'd gone to Africa and learning about like ancient rituals to clear like passed down trauma and things like that. So I just did this, and it was very interesting. I worked with a woman like called an elder, and she had studied with a tribe in Africa, and she has other people who work with her, and you do these various things. Like you start out, and it's kind of hard to explain, but like the first night you go to a tree and you do these rituals at the tree. And I don't often remember my dreams, but that night that I did the rituals, I felt like I dreamt all night. I felt like I was watching a movie, one after another. I was just dreaming. And at the same time I'm dreaming, they are dreaming. Like they call in their ancestors to come and help me get rid of my ancestral trauma. All very interesting. And then it continues, and you do 3 nights of ritual. And again, and so there was like, maybe a week in between this. And I didn't have any dreams anymore, like it was back to normal. And then the night we did the main ritual, again, I was dreaming all night long, different things. And the very last thing that I dreamt right before I woke up, so it was very like fresh in my mind, and it was very vivid, was like, it was this dream about like giving birth and getting to where I was going, like a hospital or whatever, wherever it was, like just a place to like lay down, because I felt like I was going to give birth like on the floor or something if I didn't lay down. And then just whoosh, like a birth. And it was so vivid and detailed and real. And they interpret all these dreams. And of course, that it won't surprise anybody, was like, the idea of like a rebirth, like that's what the ritual's trying to do. The ritual's trying to help you release all of the past trauma and, come into a new place. So it's all very interesting, but the whole purpose of doing this, in addition to the obvious, like I know there's some weird stuff with my family, is it's supposed to help me be able to connect more easily, or Molly to connect more easily with me in dreams. So I will report back to you if it does, because what their belief is like that they want to come to us. Like our children are now like amongst our ancestors, so they're ancestors, and the ancestors want to come to you, but they're not going to come unless they're invited, unless you want them to come, and you can do things to sort of like strengthen your relationship. And you have this ancestral tree, and you go to the tree, and you do sort of like a mini ritual again, and invite them to come to your dreams. So Nikki, my friend who was here, has a very vivid like relationship with her son Tommy in the dream world often. So I don't know, but
I want to try that, whatever that is.
It's pretty interesting.
I would love to get more signs from my kid. I have friends who like, oh, I saw another white feather today, or I saw another dime on the ground, and I know that's my person trying to make contact, and I don't have things like that, or either that, or I'm just so oblivious that I don't see them when they come. But I feel like I would see them if they were there.
Right. Yeah.
But I sometimes I think maybe she's mad at me or something, but I don't believe that. But it crosses my mind, because it's like this lack of communication kind of. And so.
Have you ever been to a medium?
Have I what?
Have you ever had a session with a medium?
I have had a session with a medium, and it was really interesting to me because the person that I believe appeared to her was no one that I would have really anticipated at first. And then maybe a little tiny bit at the end of my kid as Emily. But it was my stepfather who came in the dream to me, and he was a math teacher. And she told me all these things about his, numbers, and he would always try to help people with numbers. And he had a difficult relationship with one of his children. And I was like, well, that sounds like him. So, but last person I would have expected. So
interesting.
But I would like to try a medium again.
I've got some great recommendations.
Oh, good. I would love to know those. Yeah.
I will send them to you. I will also put them in the show notes for anyone who's interested. But the first one we did was recommended by a group for grieving parents. So I knew this is not some charlatan or something. I mean, this is something that like a group, that is working with the most vulnerable people is sending or recommending this person. And we had a really incredible reading with him, and we've had a few others since then. It's hard. I mean, you're sometimes, you're like, is it wishful thinking? Am I just wanting this? Am I imagining this or whatever? For me, I don't think so, but I understand like the skepticism or how doubt kind of creeps in. The dream thing was interesting because it's like, I really didn't know what to expect. And I thought like some of the rituals, I was like, oh, this is interesting. I'm taking like a bath with ashes, and I have to sleep in all white and all these different things. I mean, it wasn't difficult, but there were like ritual things, which I felt a little bit silly doing, if I'm honest. But those dreams, I was like, there's something going on here, because I never have dreams like this.
And I am like you. I very seldom have dreams that I remember. And so when I get one with either of my kids, I'm always, I get up and I try to write down every detail I can think of while it's still fresh in my mind, because I want to be able to refer back to that, because I know it may be a while before they appear to me again.
And you forget. It's interesting. Well, I'm going to have the woman, her name is Michelle, who guided me through this process, come on as a guest as well and share. And, she does this just as her sort of like service to humanity. Like nobody pays for anything. It's all just, again, similarly, the way people find meaning. Her daughter's boyfriend committed suicide, and that deeply affected their family and led her down this road. She's a financial planner, but she got into it down, started learning and delving deep into these things. And I find it all fascinating. I find it fun to explore with an open mind. Whatever, it's like you said, if it helps a little bit, great,
Right.
It's not hurting anything. So I find it interesting to explore these things, and I think other people do as well. So I'm happy to share the resources I have, and I welcome, of course, other people to do the same, because I know it's an area, that can provide some comfort, and people are interested in it, and not.
And I think it, just based on the dreams that I've had, I think there's got to be something more than just what we can feel and touch. I just, maybe I just want to believe that, but I do believe that. So
we had a very vivid dream, John and I, of Molly right after she passed, and she came to us both in a dream simultaneously. So there've been a lot of different things with Molly that, especially if you look at them all together, you're like, yeah, of course that's her.
Right.
Of course that's her. And, people from all over the place sent me all these messages, and none of them knew that they each were sharing these things, but they would say, I've never written a message like this. I feel really weird, but I had this very lucid dream involving Molly, and here's what it was. And they would describe the dreams, and the dreams were all very similar.
Wow.
Which is interesting. Mm-hmm. Yeah. They all involved Molly helping younger children. They involved her like helping them buckle their seatbelts and going on a bus, going on a journey, and also animals, like shepherding animals. So it's comforting and interesting to explore for sure.
Yeah.
I loved your book. And just before we close, tell our audience about the book, and we'll put it in the show notes. It's a Yoga for Grief workbook.
Yeah. It came out of my, what I did in my classes. So I designed 6 classes that went into this series, and each one of the classes focused on a different aspect of yoga and how it can help you in your grief. And in a 90-minute class, I just really never felt like I had enough time to say everything that I wanted to say about either yoga or grief. And so I started writing, and there were parts of it that just sort of came out of my hands into the typewriter, and it's the way they are in the book. I mean, it was just like they just spilled out perfectly.
Yeah.
Not all of the book was like that.
Yeah.
But, and so it's 8 chapters, kind of an introduction to yoga, plus the different 6 topics of the classes that I had designed. And then another, just a kind of an encouraging end, I hope. And some workbook kinds of things along the way that I like to journal, and I like to have sort of some prompts sometimes. So, that's what's in there. And, it seems like the people that have liked it a lot, and that makes
I liked it a lot. It's very accessible. It's very easy to use, and I've said this before in the podcast. Like someone who's in grief, it's like we need things to just be like very easy to absorb. Not a lot of, I always found it's like your brain is in a fog. So you need tools that are just like readily available, easy to use, like just inject it into my veins. I just want it to be simple. So that is really what it is. And so thank you for writing that and sharing it. And we'll link to it on Amazon so people can go check it out.
That'd be great. Thanks so much.
Of course. Well, thank you for coming. Thank you for being here with me, and for being along with me on this journey all these years now.
The journey that neither one of us would have wanted to be on, but here we are. And it is really lovely to finally connect with you. So
it's such a pleasure to meet people. It's such a gift and such a pleasure to meet people who have been with us and kind of quietly, and have prayed for us and have been rooting for us. And it's very sweet. And it just really makes me feel like we're really supported. And I hope that's sort of what we're trying to create here for more people. So thank you so much.
Yeah. I hope you have a great day. Thanks so much for having me on. And it's been a really nice conversation.
All right. Thank you, Nancy. And thank you to our audience for being here with us. Please follow the show and leave us a review. Until next time, I am your host, Kaye Steinsapir.